Chapter 1. Some events leave scars. They mark time, changing life as you know it into something unrecognizable. Death split my life into 2 periods, before Charlie and after Charlie. That morning, I woke up crying without knowing why. Dread followed me through the day. It needled at my thoughts until I succumbed and acknowledged that someone I loved would die before the sun set. Tessa Marie, we need you to come to the hospital. It's your Uncle Charlie, my great-grandmother May said over the phone. Is he all right? I knew the answer. No, child. He had a heart attack and is on life support. The doctors are talking about turning off the machines. Please hurry. We're at Florida Hospital on Rollins Street. The call disconnected. My great-grandmother must have lost cell service. Her impeccable Southern manners wouldn't have allowed her to hang up without saying goodbye. I've got to go. I sprang from the bed, searching for my discarded clothing. Sex had been my last-ditch effort to shake the feeling that someone would die. It hadn't worked. I'll wait here until you get back. Ian, get up. You can't stay here. I pulled a t-shirt over my head. Ian threw the blanket off and tugged on his jeans. What's going on? My uncle is on life support. This can't be happening. He can't die. I need him too much. I just talked to him this morning. He sounded fine. There has to be a mistake. I slipped on my flip-flops and headed for the door. Let me drive. Ian jangled his keys. I wanted to tell him to stay put, but I didn't feel like driving. We rode in silence for a while before Ian sighed and turned on the radio. A disembodied voice reported the murder of a young mother and the possible kidnapping of 2 small children. The victim's mother had found her daughter's body in the kitchen earlier that day. The children hadn't been located, and the police had yet to release any names. I drew my knees to my chest and prayed for both my own family and that of the murdered woman. Want me to come in? Ian eased the car to a stop. I studied him for the first time since the call had ruined our alone time. Wide-eyed, he rubbed his palm on his thigh and shifted in his seat. His expression puzzled me. I couldn't tell if he was worried about me or if he feared I would actually ask him to come inside. We'd dated about 3 weeks, if hanging out during happy hour and having sex at every opportunity counted as dating. Come to think of it, we'd never had a proper date. No, I'm fine. Thank you, though. Ian exhaled and grasped the steering wheel. He started to pull away before the car door even shut. Actions spoke louder than words, and his actions screamed. I stood on the sidewalk and gathered the courage to walk into the hospital's lobby. My skin prickled as I passed through the glass doors. I turned and found the woman behind the welcome desk glaring. Under the puff of cottony white hair, 2 dark, beady eyes fixed on me. The woman wore a blue vest with a colorful badge that proclaimed her status as a volunteer. Her lips twisted in disapproval. I wondered, what have I done to offend her? I resisted the urge to rush up the escalators in order to avoid the sour old woman. Behind the welcome desk was the hospital gift shop, filled with flowers and balloons. The contrast between the not-so-welcome desk and the happy little gift shop made me grin. I squared my shoulders and walked to the desk. Can you tell me what room Charles Nokoseka is in? Nokoseka? How do you spell that? The old woman glared at me. I spelled the last name for her, exaggerating the pronunciation of each letter. I knew the drill. It wasn't my last name, but I'd spelled Nokoseka 1,000,000 times. The woman typed in the name, looking between me and the screen. "He is in ICU, step down. Only immediate family members are allowed to visit." For some unknown reason, the little old lady had an issue with me. "I'm his niece, but he raised me—" What the hell? I didn't have time to argue. I needed to find my uncle. "You've missed visiting hours." Considering they called me to pull the damned plug, I don't think visiting hours are going to be an issue. Tell me where he is. My outburst surprised us both. I didn't care. I hurried to the escalators, then took the metal steps 2 at a time. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I needed to get to my family. Something was wrong. More wrong than the fact that the man who'd raised me was fighting for his life at this very moment. I rounded the corner to the step-down unit and stopped. 2 large men stood in front of the elevators, blocking the hall. Their size didn't strike me as much as their ponytails and sharp features did. They could have been members of Charlie's tribe coming to pay their last respects, had it not been for their tight expressions and stiff postures. They were angry. Very angry. I turned and went in the opposite direction until the elevator pinged. I counted to 10 and doubled back toward Charlie's room, pausing in the hallway. At least 20 family members had gathered in the waiting room, including my mother. At that moment, I would rather have gone up against the 2 big guys in the hall than face down my family. I should have guessed my mother would be there. Even still, it struck me like a punch to the gut. All eyes turned to me when I stepped into the waiting room. I scanned the faces, searching for my great-grandmother or great-aunt, but found neither. The television in the corner caught my attention. The newscast reported on the story of the murdered mother. Pictures of the young woman with 2 small children flashed across the screen. The police urged the public to call with any information regarding the whereabouts of the kids. Hearing the story on the radio had tugged at my heartstrings. Seeing the children's faces yanked them out. Shit. Now, darling, that is something we do, not something we say. The sweet southern drawl and gentle chiding made me feel like I was 8 years old. Grandma had told me the same thing while standing in her vegetable garden. The second time I cursed in front of her earned me ivory soap for mouthwash. I bent down to hug May's short, round body. Grandma had grown up in abject poverty, but behaved like a southern lady. She grew her own tomatoes, drank her tea sweet as cane, and could drop a deer or a whiskey in 1 shot. "How is he?" I cringed, wanting to believe Glinda the Good Witch would swoop down in her bubble and fix all the wrongs. "Not good, darling." "Can I see him?" "He's waiting for you." May took a firm grip on my hand and led me away from the wide-eyed family members. Grandma didn't have that determined look in her eyes often. They all knew to get out of her way when she did. Everyone, that is, except my mother. Chapter 2. "Tessa, oh, I'm so glad you came." Darlene rushed toward me with arms outstretched, her heavy makeup ruined with twin black streaks. A well-used tissue hung in her hand as she reached for me. Sure, now she acknowledges my presence. Long ago, I would have sold my soul for a few moments of my mother's attention. That ended around the time I turned 10. May shook her head while Darlene pretended not to notice. I sidestepped the unwelcome hug and mouthed, "Sorry," to my angry-faced mother as Grandma dragged me toward the door. Darlene narrowed her eyes. Tessa thinks she's too good for us." A knot tightened in my stomach as family members surrounded my mother. They cooed and petted her, agreeing with everything she said. Little did they know how hard I'd fought to achieve a sense of self-worth. I'd struggled for years to overcome the pain of my childhood and to recreate myself. My family, like my southern accent, proved impossible to overcome. "Trauma, trauma," Grandma whispered as she ushered me down the hall. "Don't let them shake you. They come out when there's blood or money on the line." I forced myself to ignore my family. Truth be told, my real family consisted of the 3 people who weren't huddled in the waiting room. Grandma, Uncle Charlie, and Aunt Dottie had raised me. My mother came to collect me a few times, promising things would be different. The visits always ended sooner rather than later, and I found myself back on Dottie and Charlie's doorstep. The second I entered his room, tears sprang to my eyes. I covered my mouth to stop the scream rising in my throat. I wanted to run away, to go home to Charlie's house and visit over sweet tea. I wanted him to tell me everything would be all right. I hugged Aunt Dottie. When had my vivacious aunt grown old and frail? How long had it been since I'd sat with her, watching soap operas and eating macaroons? I turned toward my uncle, and my knees went out from under me. As they'd done my entire life, Dottie and May steadied me until I could stand on my own 2 feet. "We're going to be right outside," Dottie whispered and patted my shoulder. My mouth fell open and I shook my head. Before I could form a word of protest, they left me alone with my uncle and several large, noisy machines. Each step toward him felt like a monumental accomplishment. I sat on the edge of his bed, transfixed by the gentle rise and fall of his chest. His jet-black hair had grayed, and the smile lines on his cheeks had deepened. "I'm sorry I've been away so long. I promise I'll take care of Dottie and Grandma for you." Memories flooded me as I placed my hand on top of my uncle's. I remembered being a tiny girl and setting my hand against his, measuring my small fingers against his larger ones, marveling over how pale my skin looked next to his. My green eyes searching his dark brown eyes, I'd ask, "Am I Cherokee?" "About half, I'd reckon," he'd reply. I'd crinkle my nose and giggle, "Which half? Your color is white, but you're stubborn as all Indian." He'd laugh in his deep, good-hearted way and kiss the top of my nose. I would have given my life to hear that laugh again. "I need you. Please stay with us." A soft sound filled the room, a whistled melody that reminded me of both nature and Uncle Charlie. I thought I was imagining it, until I recognized the tune. He whistled it while working in the yard or when one of the tribe came for healing. I'd never asked about those visits, though I always knew he served as the tribe's medicine man. The fluorescents overhead flickered and hummed, causing my temples to throb. I pulled back the heavy drapes and sunlight flooded the room. I would have opened the window, but it was bolted shut. At least I'd given him sunlight. I knew Charlie appreciated the effort. The whistling began again. I focused on breathing. Inhale, 1, 2. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1. I'd seen spirits before, but never the spirit of someone I loved. A fresh breeze caressed my cheek, and my eyes flew open. I couldn't see the spirit as much as feel it. I closed my eyes again, and lips kissed the tip of my nose. "There you are." "And here you are, little flame." Charlie's voice sounded distant, nothing solid to hold on to. Still, it moved with life and warmth. "Your aunt and great-grandmother are in danger. Crows will come from my notebook to learn my secrets. Our secrets. Go get my cedar box and take it to Dr. Hicks in Gainesville. He will help you." "I don't understand. Who would want your box? What secrets?" I stopped talking and focused on the more important issue. "Don't leave us. Please, you can't die." Some things cannot be changed. Others can. Listen to me." A cold sweat broke out across my brow, and I felt faint. Maybe my blood sugar had bottomed out. I'd skipped dinner in favor of having a flat tummy during the roll in the hay with Ian. The added stress was causing me to hallucinate. "Tessa, tell Dr. Hicks you're my granddaughter." His voice drifted, lost to alarms and beeps. "What? Great niece? You meant great niece, right?" Doctors and nurses filed in. Dottie clung to the doorframe with May. "Dottie?" I couldn't move, let alone form a sentence. A nurse ushered us into the hallway, directly into the Crusher family. Someone shouted, "Tessa pulled the plug!" Others spoke all at once. By far, Darlene's voice rang the loudest. My mother accusing me of killing my uncle. "Come with me." My great-grandmother tried to shield me from the mob. Dottie wrapped her arms around me, whispering calming words. I couldn't breathe. I struggled free of the embrace and ran away from my mother's acrid voice. No matter how far I ran, the continuous monotone beep of the monitor echoed in my ears. Chapter 3. I hit the ground floor in a blind panic. Ian had dropped me off, so I had no car, no way to get back to my apartment. In my rush to get to the hospital, I'd forgotten my purse and cell phone. I needed to think. I needed to be still, but my brain refused to cooperate. I ran out the glass doors and dropped onto a bench. In the corner of my consciousness, I sensed people watching me. It's a hospital. People die here and families cry and mourn. Big deal. Stare away. I tried to make sense of Charlie's warning. I remembered the heat rolling off the men waiting for the elevator. I bolted upright and surveyed my surroundings. Waiting outside didn't seem prudent, all things considered. I marched to the welcome desk. "I forgot my phone and need to make a call. Please." The volunteer's attitude hadn't improved. The woman scowled and turned the phone toward me. The old woman made a point to watch as I dialed. "Haley, I'm at the hospital on Rollins Street. My uncle died and I need a ride. Can you come get me, please?" I stopped listening after she said yes. My gut told me to stay inside. The sane, educated side of me balked, craving sunshine. The entire ordeal had produced some sort of psychosomatic paranoia. Research showed that bereft loved ones often turned to magical thinking of ghosts and mediums in order to hold on to some part of their deceased loved ones. It seemed logical. but the textbooks didn't account for the scope of sensations and emotions rolling through me. I wandered toward the windows, telling myself I should look out for Haley. I scanned the front walkways and the line of shrubs on the other side of the road. Every small movement drew my attention and made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I waited for what felt like hours, preoccupied with looking for the boogeyman. I startled when Haley waved from the other side of the window. "Thanks for picking me up. Ian dropped me off, and I didn't think about how I was going to get home. I hope this isn't too much trouble." My words came out too fast. "Tessa, chill. It's not a problem." Haley put the car in drive. "Are you sure you want to go home?" "Yeah, I need my car. I have to go take care of some things at my uncle's." I sank into the seat. "I can go with you. I don't have to be at work until morning." Haley reached over to pat my thigh. "Hell, I can call off. It's not like they're going to fire me." "No, I can't imagine your dad firing you. Who else would put up with counseling spoiled rich kids?" "Certainly not you. Seriously, when are you going to grow a maternal instinct?" "Maybe when I'm 30. Haley grinned. "I'll come in. I miss staying up all night talking with you." "Thanks, but I want to go alone. I think I need some quiet time to process all of this." "Right. Just don't isolate yourself or spend too much time with that crazy-ass mother of yours. Neither are healthy options." Haley shook her head. "She was at the hospital. She accused me of pulling the plug." Haley's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "What the hell? That woman makes Mommy Dearest look tame. What happened? I mean, what happened to Charlie?" I turned toward the window. "Grandma called and said he had a heart attack and was on life support. I didn't get any other details. The second I got there, they took me in to see him. 5 minutes later, the machine started going crazy and he was gone." "I'm sorry." Haley squeezed my hand. "Something weird happened. I don't know how to explain it. I knew something bad was going to happen today, and at the hospital, you've always been freakishly intuitive. Tell me what happened." I admired Haley. She was calm and even-keeled until she spat out a slew of curses that would have sent Grandma running for a bar of soap. Haley gave the car in front of us the one-finger salute. The guy had almost run us off the road. "Sorry, Tessa. Ever since I hit 10 weeks, my hormones have been out of control." As soon as the words came out of her mouth, Haley went wide-eyed. "I planned to tell you. Scott made me promise to wait until after the first trimester. Some ridiculous superstition." I snapped my mouth shut. "So this is why you guys have been avoiding going to Fitzpatrick's with me and Ian for happy hour. I thought you were blowing us off." "No, we've been avoiding going because we can't stand Ian." Haley smirked. "Hormones got your tongue again?" "No, just the truth. The guy is a complete douche." "Seriously, Haley, is that your professional diagnosis?" I snorted in laughter. "He is a douche, isn't he? You can do much better. I mean, look at you. You're like Jessica Rabbit with your long red hair and curves. I'd kill for your figure." "You have to say that because you're my friend. Try being 5'2" with D cups." I crossed my arms. "Boobs aren't all they're cracked up to be." "I wouldn't know, but maybe mine will finally blossom now that I'm pregnant." I lost myself in my thoughts for the remainder of the drive. When we arrived at my building, Haley parked outside and cut the motor. Now that I have that off my chest, tell me what happened that was so weird. She put on her professional face. I can see it upset you. Are you going to charge me for this session? I can't afford your hourly rate. Out with it. Haley grinned. I debated telling her about the ghostly message from beyond, but Haley never accepted anything except science. She would come up with some well-researched clinical explanation. I needed to believe Charlie had reached out to me. Besides, if some sort of danger lurked about, I couldn't put Haley in harm's way, pregnant or not. It's the same old family drama, Haley. Nothing new. I smiled to cover my lie. Thanks for the ride. I need to get going, and you need to get home and put your feet up. Don't forget, you're growing a baby. Chapter 4. After 2 minutes alone in my apartment, I wanted to call Haley. The space felt too quiet, too dark, and too empty. Even after I turned on every light, I couldn't shake my unease. I turned on the television, and the screen filled with the coverage of the murdered mother and missing children. The place needed a good scrubbing. I had no one to blame but myself for the piles of dirty dishes, discarded clothes, and books. Maybe I should clean and get a couple of hours of sleep before retrieving the cedar box? A soft pillow and a warm blanket sounded good, but even on a good night, sleep eluded me. Insomnia was a long-lasting side effect of my graduate school days. I decided to ignore the apartment and pack a bag. I would need my laptop if I had to track down this Hicks guy. The older generation of my family didn't waste their money on computers. They'd only recently broken down and ordered cable. The picture of Charlie and Dottie on my nightstand caught my eye. I sat on the bed, staring at their smiling faces, remembering the day I'd taken the photo. The entire family had gathered to celebrate Grandmay's birthday. Charlie had unrolled a piece of visqueen on the lawn and set the hose at one end. He was soaking wet after a turn on the homemade slip and slide and had grabbed Dottie for a hug. Their smiles both warmed and broke my heart. I buried my face in my pillow and willed myself to cry. The tears wouldn't come, no matter how hard I tried. I closed my eyes and focused on my memories of that day. Ribs cooked on the grill and laughter in the air. Would we ever have another day like that? Day of easy joy? I woke in a panic but couldn't remember the nightmare. My heart raced and my head felt heavy. I had no idea how long I'd slept, but fatigue slowed my every movement. I had to go to Charlie's and find his cedar box, but my body begged for rest. On some level, I knew grief caused my exhaustion, but refused to give in. There would be time to mourn later. I drove in the dark early morning with the window down. The car reeked of cigarettes. Ian smoked, and though I hated the smell, I'd never bothered to ask him not to smoke in my car. Haley's assessment was spot on. He was a jerk. I needed to break things off, but how? Calling him would cause too much drama. Email? Impersonal. Texting? Tacky. In the end, I decided to play the avoidance game and eliminate the chances of a confrontation. It might be cowardly, but I had enough on my plate without adding a wounded male ego to the mix. My thoughts drifted from Ian to Charlie to my mother to the murdered stranger to Haley's baby. Nothing stuck long enough to matter. My body knew the way to the house in the backwoods without the need to engage my brain. The car crossed a set of rough railroad tracks and continued on to a dirt drive that ran parallel to the tracks. A patch of green grass grew down the middle of the drive. On each side of the grass, white sand dipped and rose like the hills of a roller coaster. One side rose while the other side dipped, so all four wheels sat at different levels. Graham May called them God's speed bumps. As I stepped out of the car, a chill ran down the length of my spine. Several sets of tiny black eyes stared. My snake sense. No matter how many years I spent in the backwoods of Florida, I never got used to all the dang snakes. Using the light from my phone, I illuminated my feet in time to see a black racer slide under my car. Each step I took, the phone lit up more snakes. What the fuck? I glanced over my shoulder, thankful my great-grandmother wasn't around to hear me use the ultimate bad word. I thought I'd jump out of my skin by the time I reached the front steps. The stairs consisted of concrete blocks stacked in neat rows. To my dismay, another snake rested on the second step. I shined the light on it, made shooing sounds, and stomped my feet. The dang thing refused to move. Its eyes reminded me of the old woman at the hospital, small, black, and mean. I set my foot on the step above the snake, expecting it to slither toward my ankle. It didn't move, except to turn its head and watch me open the door. Once inside, I shook my arms and hopped around to shake the feeling of those beady eyes. I left the porch light off to prevent attracting a battalion of bugs. Inside, I turned on every light to chase the shadows away. Pipe smoke and Old Spice, the scents of Uncle Charlie, lingered in the second bedroom. A twin bed and a desk sat against opposite walls, with a narrow walkway between the two. A cheap particle board bookcase contained rows of old glass jelly jars, coffee cans, and the like. Charlie had labeled each container in a language I couldn't read. I crawled under the desk to reach the bottom shelf where Charlie kept his cedar box. The hand-carved wood was as smooth as polished stone. I scrambled out from under the desk as a daddy longlegs crawled down the wall. Next to snakes, spiders were my least favorite creatures. I sat on the bed, feeling like a little girl getting into something forbidden. I said a quick prayer and opened the box. When nothing exploded and no one yelled, I peeked inside. I smiled at a picture from my third birthday party. I was sitting on Uncle Charlie's lap beside a pink triple-layer cake. Charlie had a huge smile, and I crinkled my face to wink. Kool-Aid stained the front of my homemade smock dress, and my hair was a wild mess of red tangles. My vision blurred, and I set the picture aside. Okay, enough with the pity party. The remaining contents included newspaper clippings from my high school and college graduations, a yellowed funeral notice for Charlie and Dottie's only child that read, Nathaniel Nokoseka, 2. An envelope addressed to Dr. Marvin Hicks, University of Florida, and an old composition book held together by a thick rubber band. I placed everything back inside and stuffed the entire box into my laptop bag. My stomach growled, sending me to the kitchen, where I proceeded to raid the refrigerator. Finding food in Dottie's refrigerator reminded me of a game of hide-and-seek. All sorts of good things hid inside old plastic containers. The Cool Whip container held some potato salad, a keeper. I set it on the counter. The small country crock bowl contained green beans. Those went back. The large country crock container held margarine. I opened an orange container and found leftover meatloaf. Jackpot. I grabbed the ketchup, bread, American cheese, and mayo. By the time I sat down, I'd eaten half of the cold meatloaf. Outside, a dog growled, something fierce, probably tangling with one of those darned snakes. I rinsed my dishes, determined to ignore the dog. I didn't want to go out before the sun rose. The dog started to howl. Had the neighbor's hunting dogs cornered a possum? I dried my hands and opened the front door. At first, I didn't see the animals, but they must have seen me because they darted for the porch. 3 large black dogs. No, too big to be dogs. Wolves? Holy cow! 3 wolves stared from the bottom of the porch steps. I didn't know which freaked me out more, the huge wolves or the gyrating pile of snakes now covering the porch. I ducked inside, slammed the door, locked the deadbolt, turned the useless lock on the knob, and set the chain for good measure. My shaking fingers made it difficult to dial the phone. 911, what is your emergency? Snakes! Lots of snakes! I'm trapped inside. There are wolves, 3 big ones, black, I think. Please help me. I'm trapped inside. You need to call animal services after 8 a.m. The woman on the other end of the phone paused. Did you say wolves? Are you sure they aren't big dogs? My hand tightened around the phone. No! Wolves! Listen! I went to the jalousie windows and opened one enough for the operator to hear the sounds of 3 huge-ass wolves howling. Do you hear them? That is going on outside your house? Yes. Please send help to 2011 Sandy Lane, Apopka. This is my uncle's house. My name is Tessa Lamar. I'm alone and freaked the hell out. Send police. Guns. Guns are good. One of the wolves slammed into the window. I screamed and dropped the phone. The wolf clawed the slats of glass as I cranked the window closed. What kind of wolf tried to pry a window open? I hightailed it to the master bedroom and pulled out a single-barrel shotgun, a semi-automatic camo-colored brand-spanking-new shotgun. Uncle Charlie used it for hunting, scaring off the Jehovah's Witnesses and ensuring that the family from hell didn't get too rowdy. I checked for shells. 1 in the chamber, a full magazine, and a ghost round floating on the carrier. I had 5 rounds and 3 wolves. The odds were in my favor. Could I shoot 3 moving targets from inside the house without breaking a window? I debated my options until I heard the glass break and the claws begin to scratch against the metal. The darned thing had managed to get its paw inside the broken slat. I stuffed the barrel into the broken slat and fired. Glass shattered, but only 1 slat broke. The kickback wasn't as bad as I expected. Unlike Charlie's old gun, it didn't knock me flat on my butt. The wolf fell back onto the wooden porch. My ears rang enough to block out sound. The sun broke over the horizon as 2 wolves retreated across the yard. On the porch, the snakes moved over the large mass of the fallen wolf. Beneath the snakes, I swore I saw skin, not fur. What the hell? I tried to get a better look, but couldn't through the various shades of snake. I grabbed the phone and rested the shotgun against my shoulder. Hello? I can't hear you. I shot one of the wolves. At least I hoped I'd shot a wolf. It looked like the snakes had moved off the body of a very naked and very dead man. This has been The Spirit Tree, Tessa Lamar Novels, Book 1, Volume 1. Narrated by Holly Adams, a member of SAG-AFTRA. Copyright 2016 by Wyndham House. Production copyright 2017 by Wyndham House.